Based on true events, a group of troubled teens are sent to a boot camp situated on a remote island to correct their devious behavior. Unbeknownst to their parents, the facility is using harsh treatment that endangers the teens' lives. One day, a rich teen named Sophie enters a record shop and complains to Ben, the cashier, that the brand new disc she purchased was scratched. Ben tries to assess the situation, but Sophie's temper manifests, and she knocks over a stack of CDs. Since Sophie's causing trouble in their shop, Ben decides to deal with her by taking her to a secluded area to talk. In reality, the pair are lovers, and after they kiss, Sophie reminds Ben about their friend's party later. Ben's hesitant about attending since he has work, but Sophie insists they'll have fun, so he eventually agrees. Back in Sophie's home, the teen interrupts her stepfather Carl's conversation with his guests to confront him for searching her room for illicit substances. To further embarrass him, Sophie believes that a plague of corrupt politicians is far more concerning than the substances. Immediately, Marianne, Sophie's mother, apologizes to the guests to save Carl from the humiliation, and she invites Sophie to the other room to talk. Once they're away from their guests' inquisitive gazes, Carl reprimands Sophie for her impoliteness, but the teen is unaffected by his words, further infuriating him. That night at their friend's house, Ben notices that Sophie has a bruised arm, stirring his concern. Sophie tries to avoid discussing it, but Ben presses for more, so she reveals that she got into a heated argument with Carl. Not wanting to dwell on the topic, Sophie proposes to Ben, for she wants to be freed from her parents' control and to live with him. Ben shows hesitancy, which makes Sophie doubt his affection for her, but he clarifies that he wants to marry her with love binding them, not for legal reasons. Pleased with his words, Sophie kisses him, but a sudden presence disrupts their intimate moment. An agent grabs Ben and takes him into the closet so that he won't intervene with Sophie's arrest. The other agent informs Sophie that they have parental consent to apprehend her, but she refuses to cooperate. Left without a choice, the agents restrain and sedate Sophie, leaving her helpless. Moments later, Ben visits Sophie's residence and interrogates her parents about her whereabouts, but Carl tells him that she's away. Marianne adds that she's going to be gone for a year as it's part of the program. Ben believes their decisions unreasonable, so Marianne explains that they want Sophie to change because she's being destructive. The next day in Fiji, Sophie, alongside Jack and Danny, arrives at the facility's location, and sensors are strapped on their ankles. Logan, the warden, volunteers to attach Sophie's sensors and touches her inappropriately, which makes her uncomfortable. Disregarding her reaction, he orients them that the island doesn't have walls, but the sensors on their ankles will alert them if they try to escape. To scare them, he tells them that the island is surrounded by various bodies of water that sharks inhabit. Once the orientation's finished, the security leads the teens into 3 concrete blocks and chains them there. By the morning, the facility's founder and director, Dr. Arthur Hale, greets the teens, but Jack throws a slur at him, offending him. Hale reprimands him for using inappropriate words, emphasizing that it's forbidden within the camp grounds. On the other hand, Sophie complains about chaining them to cement blocks, and she points out that it almost killed them. In his defense, Hale reminds them that their delinquency has metaphorically chained their parents on a cement block for years. Therefore, he believes that it's fair for them to experience their parents' suffering even for one night. As they walk to the camp grounds, Hale informs the teens that his camp is called the Advanced Serenity Achievement Program, or ASAP, which aims to help troubled teens save their future. Later on, Ellen, one of the inmates, gives the teens a brief tour of the facility. Alongside it, she informs them that since they're newcomers, they're required to wear a black shirt that represents their confused emotional state. She explains that the colors will change as they progress in the program, and that the white shirt poses a great chance of their dismissal. Upon reaching the newcomers' tent, Sophie is alarmed at how Logan badly treats the male inmates, notably Jack. At that moment, Ellen orders Trina to show Sophie around, and she complies. Meanwhile, in Denver, Marianne meets Ben at a cafe to encourage him to stop pursuing Sophie, but he refuses. He believes that Marianne disapproves of Sophie's incarceration, but the woman denies it and stresses that she knows what's best for her daughter. Provoked, Ben tells Marianne that Sophie needs her, especially after her father's passed away. This surprises Marianne, especially since she's unaware of how Sophie truly feels about her. Ben explains that Sophie thinks thinks she is only devoted to Carl. Though there's truth in Ben's words, Marianne's in denial, so she tries to leave. However, Ben stops her and asks if Sophie's safe. So Marianne tells him that her daughter's now an inmate of the ASAP camp. Later that night, Ben begins his research about the camp for he wants to free her. During the few weeks of Sophie's stay, she has a hard time adjusting as the food distribution is portioned, and there are pest infestations. One day, Sophie holds a grudge against the white-shirted inmates, as they're merely supervising them and don't participate in hard labor. Trina explains that they're ensuring that no one's stealing anything in their camp. Moreover, Trina reveals that Hale gave them a little power, freedom, and extra food to make them dedicated to their work. Shortly after, Hale encourages the crowd to support Trina as it's her first time in their session. He asks her about the reason for her incarceration, but Trina refuses to divulge any information about it. Because of this, Hale becomes disappointed in her, but he refuses to leave the issue, so he seeks volunteers from the crowd that'll make Trina spill the truth. One of the volunteers that's chosen is Ellen, and she accuses Trina of selling her body. Though hurt, Trina denies her allegations, so the rest of the volunteers provoke her by accusing her of stealing and using illicit substances. The session begins to disturb Sophie, but she can only watch for she's powerless. In the end, Trina surrenders and admits that she rebelled against her strict and devout Christian parents by sleeping with various men. However, Trina becomes emotional as she deeply regrets the mistake she committed. Sophie, alongside the other inmates, shed a tear for her out of sympathy. To console her, the volunteers approach her and express their love for her. One night in Denver, Ben wants to follow Sophie in the boot camp, so he purchases an illicit substance from a dealer. Meanwhile, Sophie wonders why the inmates are excited about dinner, and Trina tells her that they'll be serving chicken, which is only served once a month. Unfortunately, Trina announces there won't be anything left for them. Despite this, Trina wants to get a taste of the dish, so she secretly stashes a piece of chicken in her pocket. After her errand, Trina heads to the litter station under the guise of throwing the garbage when, in reality, she consumes the chicken in secret. Suddenly, Logan appears from behind and reprimands her for stealing food. Trina tries to make an excuse, but Logan reminds her that it's against their rules. When Trina shows fear, Logan proposes to help her get promoted, but in exchange, she has to be intimate with him. Trina refuses, but Logan continues to make his way with her. Moments later, a storm devastates the camp and destroys the inmates' tents, compelling them to leave. The following morning, Ellen assigns Trina as the leader of her fellow inmates, much to her appreciation. In her leader mode, Trina orients her peers that they'll rebuild the tents, but Sophie objects, especially since there are no male inmates involved to help them. Trina reprimands her for complaining and urges her to start with their task. For the next few hours, Sophie diligently helps her peers move the furniture, but the fatigue gets the best of her, causing her to stumble. Trina notices that she's still on the ground, thinking that Sophie's wasting time. Therefore, she reprimands her and orders her to continue her errand. However, Sophie wants to take a rest, but Trina pushes her to work. Since Sophie refuses to cooperate, Trina orders the remaining inmates to teach her a lesson, and they comply. Now, Sophie endures the harsh attack from her fellow inmates, leaving her helpless. Later on, Ben, who's freshly admitted to the facility for substance dependence, becomes worried after catching a glimpse of Sophie's beaten state. In the shower, Sophie sheds tears for her traumatizing experience. The following evening, Ben reunites with Sophie at dinner, and she's confused about the reason he's admitted to the facility. Wanting an answer to this, Sophie leaves the table and heads to the kitchen. Once they're alone, Ben reveals that he orchestrated a fake confrontation with a dealer to make his parents believe he's problematic. Sophie becomes emotional when she sees Ben's arms, but he assures her he only tore his veins using a saline solution. Ben promises that they'll escape the island, and Sophie gives him her full trust. The next day, Hale awards Trina a yellow shirt after witnessing the dedication she's displayed. He uses her as an example to encourage the inmates to harbor the same work ethic so they can go home. By the evening, Sophie takes her turn in their sharing session, but she refuses to speak about her troubled past. Due to this, Hale searches for volunteers to break Sophie's walls, and the crowd erupts. When 4 volunteers are chosen, Ellen begins to berate Sophie, which reminds her of her confrontation with Carl. The volunteers throw Sophie to the ground, and Ellen expresses her frustration at her uncooperativeness. Eventually, Sophie surrenders at their provocation and admits that she lied about Carl trying to sleep with her just to humiliate him. but now she apologizes for her mistake. After the session, Ben speaks to Sophie and informs her that he's created an escape plan. Sadly, Sophie begins to question herself, as she believes they wouldn't have been in the facility if only she didn't lie in the first place. Ben's unbothered by her actions because he believes everyone makes mistakes. The next day, Sophie watches in envy as a boat transports former inmates back to their homes. Later at dusk, Hale informs the inmates that Nick will be leaving the island after completing his dues. He's proud of Nick and his achievements, so he announces that he'll bring him to a seminar in Los Angeles. Following this, Sophie approaches Ben and agrees to participate in his escape plan, but she suggests they execute it when Hale's away. That night in Hale's office, the siblings converse about the previous inmate who died in their camp. Rhonda reflects on the possible outcome if the said inmate didn't pass away. However, Hale encourages her to think of the present and that they should focus on their current inmates. The next day in the bathroom, Ben picks on his ankle sensor when he figures out how to deactivate it, which lifts his spirits. By the time Hale and Nick are away, Ben visits Sophie's tent and invites her to execute their escape. Carefully, Sophie slips out of the tent so that she won't attract any unnecessary attention. Once the couple is outside, Ben turns off Sophie's sensor, which allows them to pass through the alert system. Now, they head to Hale's office to retrieve their passports. A little while later, the couple arrives at the shore, where a boat that Ben has stolen awaits them. Sophie wonders where they're heading, so Ben informs her that they'll stay at a resort located on the main island. While the couple is enduring the strong ocean currents just to reach their destination, Hale hosts a seminar with the parents, and he interviews Ben's father. Hale learns that Ben's father is deeply hurt by his sudden change in behavior, but the director's more intrigued when the man reveals that Sophie dumped Ben. Because of this, Hale texts Logan to check on the couple, for he believes they're conspiring something. True to his hunch, the couples reach the resort, and Ben reminds the receptionist about the reservation he made. The woman notices the marks on Ben's arms as well as their familiar attire, so she's compelled to make a phone call. While on the phone, the woman hands Ben the package he sent to their resort, which contains money. After a while, the couple are having an intimate moment in their room when Logan and his associates appear, startling them. Immediately, Logan punches Ben to prevent him from resisting. Following this, the couple are recaptured, and Logan imprisons them in the pit prison as Hale wants them to atone for their mistakes. The next day, Hale announces to the inmates that Sophie and Ben's actions caused them to receive a punishment. To teach them about responsibility, he declares that for the next 3 months, they won't have breakfast and time offs, garnering the crowd's displeasure. Weeks later, Logan frees the couple, and he takes Ben with him as Hale wishes to converse with him. By the shore, Hale reprimands Ben for his actions, explaining that their escape can endanger Sophie and destroy her progress in the program. Now, Hale believes he's a selfish person as he sacrificed his relationship with his parents and even jeopardized the progress of other inmates for his personal desires. As a result, Hale decides to send him home, but Ben refuses, so the director threatens to make Sophie suffer. One night, Logan takes advantage of Trina despite her objections. Disgusted with herself, Trina takes a bath late at night, hoping to cleanse herself from the traumatizing experience. Sophie, who's worried about her, makes her presence known by asking about what happened to her. Trina tries to push her away, but Sophie's determined to help her. Eventually, Trina allows herself to be vulnerable with her and reveals that Logan touched her inappropriately in exchange for a promotion. The following morning, Logan orders the male inmates to participate in the swimming exercise, but Danny's disappointed since he can't swim. Regardless, he still complies, but as expected, he's left behind, so he has to cling to the buoy. Logan wants him to be independent, so he orders him to let go of the buoy and swim on the shore. Ben tries to help Danny, but Logan interferes, which leads the waves to push the inmate underwater. Upon witnessing it, Ben rushes to Danny's location to recover his body. Once they're on the shore, Ben performs CPR on him, but he's already gone. Ben blames Logan for killing Danny, but the man wants to make it appear that he died trying to escape. To make this version the truth, he threatens to imprison Ben if he defies him. Shortly after, Hale orders Logan to keep quiet about what happened since it'll be another threat to their facility's reputation. That night, the authorities recover Danny's body, and Hale provides a different cause for the inmate's demise. Afterward, Hale begins another session with the inmates, but this time, he urges Logan to atone for his sins. In the middle of the session, Trina bravely questions Logan about the other female inmates he promised to promote, but the man feigns innocence. With great courage, one of Logan's prey speaks up, inspiring the other inmates, including Ellen, to testify against him. Since Logan treats them like nothing, Sophie Sophie calls him a predator and a killer. Because of this, the rest of the volunteers punish him by beating him with a stick. However, Sophie prevents them from further hurting Logan, stressing that such an action proves they belong in the correctional facility. Contrary to this, Hale believes they belong there because their parents have given up on them. Ben reminds Hale of the previous casualty from his former camp in New Mexico and encourages his fellow inmates to rebel against the unjust director. In solidarity, the inmates create torches using the boat oars, and they proceed to burn every camp structure on site. As the fire engulfs the camp, Logan flees using a vehicle, but the inmates throw a bunch of junk at him, causing him to swerve into a burning litter station. Now that he's stuck, the inmates watch him get burned to death. After this incident, Jack, Ben, and Sophie enter Hale's office to put an end to the director's evilness. Hale descends the stairs with a gun in his hand, his last resort in restoring order in his camp. Before Hale can use the firearm, Jack disarms him and tries to stab him with a pen. Ben interferes and attempts to calm the inmate, but Hale reaches for his gun. Sophie tries to take it from him, but Hale successfully retrieves the firearm. Without hesitation, Hale fires the gun, but he's disappointed to know that it's unloaded. It turns out Rhonda has removed the bullets as she knows it isn't the right way to confront the problem. That night, the inmates, under Ben's leadership, decide to imprison Hale in a pit prison to ensure he won't escape the authorities. By dawn, the numerous inmates carefreely sprint to the ocean to celebrate their freedom.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.